Because of how WCW ended, everybody thinks it was a big waste from start to finish. It wasn't. When it exploded in the mid-90s, it was the industry winner for a significant period, sending a chill down WWE's spine before Vince McMahon came out swinging. When the popularity was with World Championship Wrestling, though, there was plenty to enjoy, in particular some of the crowd reactions that would deafen individuals across the country. Before it did go off the rails, WCW was a behemoth. Unfortunately, it did implode, which made everybody forget this, but that's why today, we're gonna bring those memories back. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is the 10 biggest WCW crowd reactions ever. Number 10, Bret Hart fools Goldberg. 1999 was not a good year for WCW. It was clear that the bubble had burst, and if they didn't do something soon, it may go in the direction nobody wanted. As you've probably figured out, it did, but that doesn't mean the company was completely barren when it came to good moments. One of these came in March of this year, when Bret Hart walked to the ring. Obviously feeling protected by the Canadian audience who treated him like a hometown hero, Hart laid into all his frustrations with the promotion and then called out Bill Goldberg. The Hitman started to run him down as well, revealing that he was wearing a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey, which was like taking the support he already had and tripling it. Goldberg wasn't so happy about it, so he decided he would just spear Bret Hart out of his shoes, which he did. For some reason though, as Hart slowly got to his feet, Bill did not. How does that make any sense? It got even more confusing when Bret went over to Goldberg and made a visual 3 count on him, leaving fans to question whether both wrestlers had forgotten what wrestling was. They hadn't. Soon after this, Hart lifted his top up to show that he had a metal plate attached to his chest, which sent fans wild. He had outfoxed Goldberg and then hilariously got on a mic and said that he quit. Okay, bit weird after setting up an angle like this, but that was World Championship Wrestling for you. Either way, you can't deny how great this was, which is why the audience shouted until their lungs fell out of their mouth. Number 9, Sting joins the Black and Red. By mid-1998, the NWO was bloated. Almost everybody was associated with them to the point the war with WCW was a distant memory. Because of this, the company had no choice and they just split the group right down the middle. From here on, you'd either be NWO Hollywood or you'd be NWO Wolfpack. It's as ridiculous as it sounds, they should have just killed it off. The original concept was so popular though, the fumes were still in the air, and the real focus of this story is where Sting was going to end up. He'd been the one guy who had managed to stay away from the nonsense, but WCW was going to have to put him somewhere for all of this to make sense. During Nitro, Sting revealed a classic NWO t-shirt as Hulk Hogan did backflips of glee. It sucked to be him, however, as the Stinger was trolling him. In an instant, he attacked Hogan and the Giant before stripping off again, only this time, he was decked out in the Wolfpack colors. That sounds pretty mundane these days, but 21 years ago, the WCW fan base would go bonkers for stuff like this, and that's what they did here. It's exactly what they wanted to see, so they roared their approval when it happened. You don't always have to swerve the audience to get a response. In short, even well past its sell-by date, the NWO was crazy popular. This was more proof of that. Number 8, Goldberg does the impossible. The Big Show / Paul White / The Giant, you can call him whatever you want, is not a small man. In fact, he's very large, and it would take someone of considerable strength to control his gargantuan body in any serious way. If you haven't worked it out, that's where Goldberg comes in. During a match on Nitro, Bill threatened to hoist the massive man up in the air for a suplex. No one actually thought he could do it, so when he not only did but held him up in the air for a preposterous amount of time, fans lost their This wasn't a few second masterclass either. I'm pretty sure Billy Boy has him up there now to this day. I don't know how he did it. Goldberg was jacked, but still, it made no sense. And yeah, at this point anything Bill did received a huge reaction, but this took that feeling and raised it higher still. It was like everybody in the arena had been told they won the lottery. It was also moments like this that held WWE off for a little longer. They were already at the gates and would have been through sooner if Goldberg wasn't taking 500-pound humans and chucking them above his head. And that's just what my dad does. Number 7, Ric Flair pins Vader. Before the Monday Night Wars were a thing, fans were buying into wrestling far easier than they do today. I wouldn't call them naive, but the curtain hadn't been totally drawn back, meaning the crowd invested far harder, which of course helped with live reactions. So when they saw their hero Ric Flair trying to beat Vader with the Nature Boy's career on the line, they bought in hard. For ages, Vader had been built up as a machine that nobody could defeat. He was too big and he was too strong. That meant Flair was toast. In some pretty damn good booking, however, WCW went the other way, and after a slightly bizarre finish where Flair kinda grabbed Vader's leg and tripped him over, he got the pinfall over the Mastodon. Elated with glee that he wasn't going anywhere, fans made as much noise as they could. As great as Flair was at making a crowd hate him, his underdog babyface role was equally as great. He made you believe. Hilariously, if we did this today, everybody would be pissed off. Flair basically won by making Vader fall over, but that just goes to show how different eras can be, or at least what the fans were like in 1993. Number 6, the streak is over. In modern pro wrestling, you think of two things when you hear the word streak. The first is The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and the second is Goldberg's win record after he debuted in World Championship Wrestling. Admittedly, the latter is far more dubious than the former, as WCW would just make up matches Bill had won, but whatever, it worked, so you can't take too many shots at it. The differences came towards the end. When Taker was beaten by Lesnar, the crowd was so stunned they just went quiet. Most thought it was an error, but as it dawned on them, it wasn't a quiet murmuring built through them. It was as close as you can get to the atmosphere of a funeral. It wasn't exactly the same for Goldberg. While not everybody wanted it to finish, there were audible noises from the fans that they wouldn't be too annoyed if his streak did come to a close, as long as it was done in the right way. Had WCW come up with something awesome, it would have been a great story, but they instead had Scott Hall cattle prod Goldberg, which left him at the mercy of Kevin Nash. It really sucked. The audience that night still reacted pretty big, mostly as they had been part of history. If they had known it would also be one of the catalysts that killed the whole company, I don't think they would have been so pleased. Number 5, Dean Malenko is Cyclope. Described by Chris Jericho as the loudest pop he'd ever heard at the time, Dean Malenko returning to WCW at Slamboree 1998 was masterfully done. Built around Jericho having to defend his cruiserweight title against whoever won a battle royal earlier in the night, the soon-to-be Y2J was at his peak as a heel and doing some of his best work. Jericho also acted as an announcer during the battle royal, where he spent his time running everybody else down. Was pretty funny, and he made it clear whoever he challenged would be easy pickings for the Ayatollah of rock and roller. That seemed kinda true at one point as well, when the last two men in the ring were Cyclope and Juventud Guerrera. Chris had done away with them before, so surely it would be simple if he had to do it again. However, as soon as the opponents had shaken hands, Guerrera jumped over the top rope, which means yes, he had eliminated himself. The crowd started to stir as they knew something was up, and they lost their minds when it turned out that Cyclope was actually Dean Malenko. He ripped his mask off to a thunderous roar. Dean beat Jericho for the title, because of course he did, and for around about 60 minutes, the WCW Cruiserweight Championship was the hottest title in all of wrestling. Number 4, Goldberg gets gold. This is what many call the greatest squash match in wrestling history, and it may very well be. It happened on the 20th of April 1998 episode of Nitro and saw Goldberg swan out to the ring to take on US champion Raven in a Raven Rules match. When he was there, he just kicked the crap out of him and took his title. It was Bill's first championship win, which helped with the reaction, but it was also the first half of the year, and then Goldberg could have pulled his pants down and hurled his groin around and still received the biggest pop of the night. People loved him. Go and listen to the first spear he hits on Raven before taking out the rest of the flock. The fans could not have been happier. It wasn't even in doubt that Goldberg was going to be victorious, because that was obviously the plan, but it didn't matter. Everybody wanted to see it, to when they got it, and in such powerful fashion, it just moved Bill up the ranks. You believe this is what he could do, so when he did, it was a matter of jumping up and down and cheering him on even more. I really don't understand how WCW screwed this up so bad. It was lightning in a bottle, and man does it feel so good. Number 3, Hogan gets racked. When the NWO burst onto the scene, a lot of people think it was just Sting and DDP leading the charge back against them. That's not true. As pivotal as they were, the first guy to truly get a shot back against the group was someone who eventually joined up. That would be Lex Luger. The real apex of this was when Luger faced Hulk Hogan for the world title on Nitro, just shy of Hogan's 1-year anniversary as the man. Fans were already intrigued when Lex kicked out of a leg drop, which barely happened, but when he avoided a second and dispatched other members of the New World Order who started to run in, people started to care. Could this really be WCW coming back against the group? The writing was on the wall for Hogan, so when Luger got him up in the torture rack, everybody exploded with excitement. When Hulk tapped out, forget about it. It was like the roof was going to cave in from the reverberations. The babyface locker room emptied to celebrate the new champ, and it was a real moment to cherish, which was doubly true as a week later Luger lost it back to Hogan. Oh dear. Number 2, Sting comes home. At WCW Uncensored 1997, the NWO was standing tall. They had torn through Team WCW and Team Piper in a triangle elimination match, and even had Dennis Rodman help them get the win. He was a pretty good soldier this night, as he also assisted Hulk Hogan to the back, until they were stopped by a figure appearing out of nowhere. This was none other than Sting, someone who was already shrouded in mystery as he transformed from the Surfer Dude into the Crow. Everybody was interested to see what he was gonna do. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash and Randy Savage all tried to get the better of him to no avail, as he hit them with baseball bats and scorpion death drops. Dusty Rhodes had the best line on commentary when he said, "All hell has broken loose, and hell brought with him a baseball bat." You damn right. Sting then gestured for Hogan to get back in the ring and face him, leading to yet another huge pop from the live crowd. WCW would go on to mess this story up as they love to do, but much like Luger at entry number 2, you can't beat watching this back today. It just feels special, as long as you forget about the ending to Starrcade 1997. Number 1, Goldberg becomes the man. Whether WCW knew what they had with Goldberg or not, we don't know, but who cares? Even if it was one big fluke, it doesn't matter, because when the stars truly align, it's special. You'd struggle to find a run that went as well as Bill's first few months in WCW, that saw him go unbeaten all the way through to winning the World Championship. Happening on the July 6, 1998 episode of Nitro, Goldberg pinned Hollywood Hulk Hogan to do just that, and it is among one of the biggest pops you're likely to hear. It wasn't clean, as DDP and Karl Malone caused something of a distraction, but who gives two hoots? The crowd in Georgia, where Goldberg had also played football, erupted, and they pretty much had been that way the entire match. Hulk also went all out to try and make Bill look amazing. Goldberg kicked out of 2 leg drops before retaliating with a spear and jackhammer, to the delight of everybody in attendance. There is the whole debate about doing the change on Nitro instead of a pay-per-view, but I don't care about that now. It was 21 years ago. It was the biggest win of Goldberg's career, one of the most famous matches in Nitro history, and arguably the biggest crowd reaction in WCW period. Go and watch it. It is wonderful. Know of any other big WCW crowd reactions? Make sure you let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from WhatCulture, and I will talk to you again soon.